Those are the first two aspects of the gauntlet, and they are interrelated, as people can see, because you become very gun shy as a regulator if you know that 2 years down the road, after all this work, it can be sunk by the mere existence of a report by one of the interested parties that sort of says like this is a bad idea.
Right.
The third part, the stage three, is Congress retroactively attacking the law that they have already passed.
Exactly. And that's this is the part that I think people tend to think, or at least I did, that Congress passes a law. It's such a battle to get a law passed these days, and then finally it's passed. It's as strong as it is. It's got its weaknesses. There are a couple news stories, and that's it. Congress wipes its hands of it, and it's shunted off to the agencies to be made into rules and regulations. And what I found over the course of this reporting is that is basically just not where it ends. From there, after a rule has been passed, and after it has been shunted off to the agencies, these lawmakers, and often conservatives and Republicans who have a natural sort of anti-regulation bias, can go in and weaken these rules in any number of ways. And one way is by passing a what's called a technical amendment, and it often looks very very innocuous on paper. They're very technically written. It says, in Section 8 of subsection 9, it's it's one very small part of it, and oftentimes rulemakers won't even really pay attention to these amendments, but they have the effect of gutting entire sections of a bill after it has already been passed.
And then there's also they use these technical amendments, and then they use sort of blunter instruments as well, in terms of funding of agencies that are supposed to take out these and that are supposed to execute these rules. They do it also. I mean, in terms of like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it's almost outright nullification in some respects. Just walk us through those two aspects.
Right. Yeah. The funding streams are. I mean, it's just extremely manipulative. The appropriations process. Congress holds the purse strings of a lot of these agencies, and the SEC, for example, and the CFTC, which we were talking about before. They determine how much staff essentially these agencies are going to have, what their budgets are, and at a time when they're making these increasingly difficult demands of agencies, making them submit incredibly, arguably impossibly stringent cost-benefit analyses, they're not expanding their budgets. They're in fact contracting them while giving them more and more responsibility. So just these simple appropriations methods are just really, really insidious. With the CFPB, that was actually designed, and it's one of the coups of its design, that it does not fall under the congressional appropriations. It has an independent funding source, and therefore has the ability to act in ways that maybe the Republicans and conservatives in Congress would like to go back and quote unquote punish it, but they can't.
That revenue source that revenue source is a tax on banks that gets paid essentially that provides their funding. So it is not subject to Congress saying we're going to cut your funding because it's not coming from the general fund.
Exactly, it's a fee-based source, and one of the sort of more insidious things about the overturn of those Obama's recess appointments in January was that that now, in order to reappoint the head, Richard Cordray, or appoint another head, one of the things that the Republicans are holding over their heads is they're saying, okay, we'll appoint another director to this agency if you put it under the umbrella of congressional appropriations, and therefore subject it to these purse strings, to the ability of Congress to manipulate their purse strings.
This is so stunning. So I really hope that people understand the dynamic here. The ruling about the National Labor Relations Board's recess appointees happened, I guess, a couple months ago, and essentially now the president has very little, or at least there is. We don't know for sure, but it appears that the president has very little room to provide recess appointments. Cordry is being held essentially hostage, or the position is being held hostage, so that Congress has the ability to get a hold of the funding stream of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, set up specifically not to have that dynamic, so that they can then, presumably in the future, cut the funding for this organization and make it anemic. So it's a really stunning power play, and very explicit in what they're doing. That's why I call it nullification, because they're essentially trying to destroy the law that set up this bureau in the first place. And so, okay, so we have outlined the horridness and the difficulty in getting these laws passed. I think only 1/3 of Dodd-Frank's laws, or rules, I should say, are in effect. As as projected from the law that was passed almost 3 years ago now. You outline 3 different sort of prescriptions for improving this process. Just walk us through them quickly.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm
well,
not sure
you
what
talk
order
about the White
I
House
wrote
has
it in,
the White House has to get more involved in this. It starts it off. That the president obviously has to go back in and continue to fight this fight. I mean, this is the difficulty of this, is because you're right. As soon as we pass a law, everybody's sort of exhausted. The media appetite for it goes away, and then it enters into this sort of very I guess, dark, it heads to the basement, essentially. There's very little sunlight. There's a lot of moisture, and all sorts of horrible things start to grow.
Exactly. It becomes it becomes a whole shadow fight where the rules get a little hazier, and people start, I don't know, picking up folded chairs and just whacking each other over the head with them. It becomes really ugly really quickly. One way that we can help combat that, which I talk about in the solutions part of the piece, is to help equal the playing field in terms of the asymmetry of information. We talked before about industry having an overwhelming monopoly on the number of reports, the amount of information that rulemakers are getting when they are set out to write a rule. One way that we can combat that, it's actually built into Dodd-Frank itself. There's the Office of Financial Research, the OFR, I believe, and that just got a new head. That finally, after 2 years, or after at least 10 months, we managed to finally appoint a head to that. And now it has the potential to be a very powerful organization that could require industry to give them certain information. They can share that with the different agencies, and it could be a powerful source of information. It's something that right now reformers don't have a whole lot of hope for. The board is overwhelmingly dominated by corporate interests, and the Republicans in Congress have made several efforts to kill it entirely, and claiming that it is just no good for the corporate sector. So that there's a hope. Some people are putting their eggs in that basket. Some people are saying that that's probably not going to help. Right now, we have these very small shops. We have Public Citizen and Better Markets, and these certain consumer groups around town that are really kind of running a David and Goliath show of trying to marshal as much information as they can and submit these informed public comment letters and submit reports that combat what industry is saying. But right now, we need just a lot more of that. We need public scrutiny. We need people who know what they're talking about in this field to be writing public comments to the regulators themselves and giving them the public's perspective.
It's fascinating to compare and contrast Dodd-Frank with the Affordable Care Act, because there just seems to be so many more resources for reform-minded people in terms of healthcare than financial regulation. I mean, I head down to Families USA and I talk to literally dozens of people who are working on different aspects of the Affordable Care Act, who have, who are immersed in the healthcare providing industry in one fashion or another. And so there seems to be a lot more scrutiny of the rulemaking process. The outcomes, I presume, are somewhat better, because the Affordable Care Act is another one of those things where so much is left up to the agencies to implement, both on a federal level and on a state level. Whereas in the financial world, you're right. You got Dennis Kelleher, who I should say is another Worcester boy, and I've spoken to him in the past, but he is completely underfunded. I mean, he's literally. I think I could name the three people who are actually going into these offices. I think there's also the IPAB, which is essentially a lot of tort lawyers who go in and represent people who have large institutional cases against these big financial companies. But there just isn't the same amount of firepower to scrutinize the rulemaking process and to support the rulemakers who, as far as I can tell, and you tell me from your reporting, seem to be, in general, seem to be people who have a genuine interest and have a tremendous amount of integrity, wanting to implement this, but they just are boxed in by too many avenues.
That's absolutely true. I mean, so you mentioned Dennis Kelleher at Better Markets, and his annual budget is, he told me, $2 million, which, to give you an idea, is how much industry spends on lobbyists every day and a half. And that's lobbyists alone. That's not including trade groups. That's not including their underfunded think tanks and things like the Business Roundtable and things like that. I mean, it's just overwhelming. They spend, I think, according to public records, it's $1.4 million per day on lobbyists alone. So to say that they're outgunned is just an enormous overstatement. And I think that you also make a good point there, that the rulemakers, the regulators, they are often choosing to take these positions at the CFTC, at the SEC. They have this. There's a certain. They're there because they have an interest in being on the public policy stage. They want to regulate often. They want to do the right thing. They don't want to harm the economy, but they do want to protect consumers, and they want to protect us from having another financial crisis. Honestly, that's the most important thing to the half dozen of these real live rulemakers who I spoke to, both on and off the record.
I think it's,
and I think. Sorry.
But I think it's easy for people to get cynical about the revolving door. But I think the big pressure points, it seems to me, seem to be the courts, and I think people who are interested in some equity and making sure that we are policing in some fashion this financial industry, which sunk our economy and has created all sorts of suffering, really need to start to focus on the implications, particularly of the courts, because if the courts are more amenable to some type of regulatory regime, that is going to empower the regulators, and it's also going to inhibit what Congress thinks that they can do as well.
Exactly, and we on that district circuit court of appeals that we were talking about before, there are vacancies there right now. There are 3 vacancies. There have been for quite some time. And we need to be filling those. We need to rebalance that court, and also you really can't underestimate the power of public scrutiny on this, of sunlight, as you said before.
Well, Haley Sweetland Edwards, the piece is "He Who Makes the Rules We have a link to this at majority.fm. Folks, this is, I really, I want to just tell you, Haley, again, that I think the piece is incredibly well written. It is very weedy stuff, but you make it very easy to follow and digest. And I think it's really important if we want to have a sense of why we see a failure, that we need to move past sort of some of the easy answers and understand how complex this is so that we can marshal our resources into areas that will be really effective, because we're clearly outmatched here in terms of those resources. So we must expend them wisely. Haley, thanks again for your piece.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.